it is time to hear from the professionals. On our panel today, we have Janet Crawford. She is the president of Extraordinary Living. We also have Gloria Manns, a therapist and the owner of Manns Counseling Services, and Beth McLemore, a licensed professional counselor and a pastoral counselor. Well, ladies, experts, I know you've been listening to the conversation today. What do you think men and women are doing wrong when they're trying to communicate with each other?
We don't listen to each other. We anticipate what the other is going to say. And so I am many times answering to what I think he is going to say, or I'm responding to what I thought she said instead of what she did say. So that's what I think. The key thing is to listen.
Beth, are there any things or advice you'd give to couples that they can do to increase that communication, or any tools out there that they could do?
If I'm making spaghetti sauce and my husband walks in and says, "Oh, we're having spaghetti again," most women would be tossing the pot. Not me, but other women. You have to know, you have to check to see what he meant by what he said. And I think a lot of times we don't do that. We just assume through our own filter what the meaning of something is.
Janet, you were going to comment on that?
Yes, may I add to that? I think the other thing we tend to do is we want to solve the problem. So when we are espousing and going on about what's going on myself, what I really need my husband to do is simply listen, which sometimes is one of the most difficult things to do, because he doesn't want to see me aggravated, frustrated, in pain, whatever it might be. So he goes into solving the problem for me, and I get resistant. And I see that happen a lot in friendships and in relationships.
And Gloria, I know you've counseled couples over the years. What do you find are the main issues that break couples up? What are we arguing about? What's the big deal?
Couples do not argue over big things. We don't argue over purchasing a home. We do not argue over buying a car. We argue over what I thought he said. We argue over if he didn't put the lid down on the toilet. She's buying too many shoes. Those are the type of things we argue over. You need to set aside a time, and it sounds real cornball, but you really need to do this. You need to set time aside. We talked about date night and different things to talk with each other. You don't need to be in the middle of stirring the spaghetti and having a serious conversation, because something's going to get lost. Couples need to talk, and they need to talk face to face. You be over here and she's over there. That's how the miscommunication gets started. So they do need to be face to face.
Janet, what would you tell people? Should they ever talk when they're in the midst of a heated argument or they're angry?
My opinion would be absolutely take a break. I would say take a breath. Because when our emotions are speaking, which we say things that we then want to go and reel back. And once they're said, they're out there, and it's more difficult to do. So I do think it's healthy and very appropriate to say, let me take a minute and let's come back to this conversation.
Do you find another challenge that couples deal with is trust?
There's several things that you can do to overcome the trust issue. And yes, it is a very large issue. I think the more technologically advanced we get, the more avenues we have to cheat. And my definition of infidelity or cheating is any time marital energy is going someplace other than the marriage. So that could encompass a lot of things. If there's intensity, if there is too much focus there, if there is, if a relationship is inappropriate in some way, those are signs that it is a type of infidelity. It does not have to be a sexual affair. With that, I think one of the biggest things that we need to do is incorporate priority and purity in our relationships. And what I mean by that, priority being that the couple is the primary relationship, and even children come second to that. God first, husband and wife or dating relationship second, and family, including children, after that, because they're the foundation of the home.
If you could give any couples tonight, whether they're married or single, any advice, your most important advice, what would be that final piece of advice?
It would be to make your relationships follow God's guidelines. God did it right. That's not real popular in our world, but is absolutely paramount to something that is absolutely successful. I would say you have to build it on the rock, and then the rest will follow suit.
Good advice. Gloria, your final thoughts for relationships?
So I think you have to go back and remember, what attracted to you, about him or him about you first. And then, you have to keep that date night in there. You got to keep that spark in there. You got to keep that lingerie in there. And you got to flirt with your man, And he
Flirting's okay.
Yeah, he needs to flirt with you. Keep the spark in there. But you have got to be able to talk face to face, not text, to each other.
Janet, final words.
Gosh, that's great. Both of those are great advice. Connect, whether that's physically connecting, that's listening, that's speaking, it's just riding in a car together. Connect. Make that partner your priority. I believe it's best said. That's the foundation. You'll manage through the ups and downs.
Okay, some very good advice. At this time, we'd like to open it up to our audience because, of course, the audience always has some interesting questions, and I know I have a question from this table. What is your question for our panel of experts tonight?
You all talk a lot about successful relationships and things that you see in successful relationships and trends. What are trends that you see in unsuccessful relationships?
I see a lot of women that stay because of fear. Some sort of fear of not being able to financially make it on their own, fear that they'll never be loved again, fear that they'll never find Mr. Fabulous, whatever it is. And that's unfortunate because most of our fears are unfounded. Unless you're being chased by a bear, they're usually unfounded and therefore not healthy.
When you talk about fear and even just looking for a spouse, when do you know it's time to walk away?
If you're putting a lot of energy in and it is not a reciprocal situation, then it's time to walk. If there is abuse, it's time to walk. And that's emotional, spiritual, physical, it doesn't matter. If there is not a basis of respect and love and forgiveness, you're probably wasting your time.
Any of our other panelists, any other thoughts?
When you know that when you're with him, you're not who you are, that you're being someone that he or she wants you to be. And so you're pretending, so your truth isn't speaking. And you can feel that in your body, you can feel that in your head, you can feel that in your heart, feel it in many ways. And then it's exercising your courage muscles, the language I use to say it's time for this relationship to end.
When it's right, Gloria, do you know?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have to question it?
I think as a female we do. I don't know from a male perspective, but I think you know when it's right. I mean, again, you feel it. Your body feels it. You feel it. Your overall spirit.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you act on it, though, because I've had clients that know it, but come to me to get the courage to do it. Again, with the fear.
So don't operate on fear. Trust your instincts. As you said, keep God as the foundation, and it will work out.
Yes.
Some good advice. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk. It's been exciting. It's been fun. I hope you have healthy, happy, and prosperous relationships. And if you'd like to find a mate, maybe continue your conversation or have your own love advice, we want you to continue your conversation. Talk2te@gmail.com. That's talk2te@gmail.com. Until the next time, here's to happy, prosperous relationships for you and your loved ones. Have a great night.